The first rays of the morning sun slipped across the horizon, casting long shadows over the African landscape that existed 6.4 million years ago. The forest canopy stretched endlessly, a mixture of dense trees, thick vines, and patches of open glade where shafts of light broke through. The air was damp and heavy, filled with the smell of wet earth and leaves. Birds with wingspans larger than an eagle's cried out, their calls echoing far into the distance. Beneath them life stirred, lizards skittered across fallen trunks, and insects buzzed in swarms, creating a constant hum. Among this living tapestry moved creatures unlike the others. They were neither fully ape nor fully human. Their arms were still long, their bodies covered in coarse hair, yet their posture hinted at something different. Some walked on all fours, but every now and then, one of them would push upright, wobbling for a few steps before dropping back down. Their faces bore expressions of constant alertness, eyes darting at every rustle in the bushes. Life in this place was unforgiving. Danger could spring from anywhere. A heavy rustling from the brush sent a group scattering into the safety of the lower branches. They clung to the wood, silent, waiting, hearts pounding. From the shadows emerged a predator. Not the lions of today, but an older, more powerful beast with saber-like teeth. Its shoulders moved with grace, its eyes scanning the ground for prey. The proto-humans stayed still, their instincts telling them not to move until the threat passed. For a long, tense moment, it seemed as though the predator might smell them. Then with a low growl it moved on, leaving behind only the impression of how fragile survival was. When the danger faded, the group slowly returned to the ground. They foraged carefully, digging at roots, plucking berries, listening for more signs of trouble. A young one tried to reach higher branches, stretching in a way that tested the balance between hand and foot. Its stumble ended in a small fall, but the older ones immediately surrounded it, their guttural calls rising in a protective chorus. It was a world where mistakes could be fatal, but learning was essential. As the sun climbed higher, the forest awoke fully, alive with movement and sound. These early beings moved with it, always between shadow and light, between instinct and something more. They did not yet know the future that awaited them, but each cautious step on two legs, each watchful glance, each shared moment of protection was shaping a path towards something entirely new. The clearing lay quiet at first, a small break in the dense forest where sunlight poured down and warmed the earth. The ground was scattered with fallen fruit, some fresh and sweet, others already rotting and buzzing with flies. Slowly, cautious shapes emerged from the shadow of the trees. The proto-humans, moving on a mix of 2 legs and 4, testing the air with their noses, ears twitching at every sound. Hunger pressed them forward, but instinct demanded vigilance. Predators lurked even in the calmest moments. One of the females moved toward the fruit, her infant clinging tightly to her fur, its small face buried in her chest. She crouched low, eyes shifting back and forth, before daring to pick up a rounded nut. Around her others did the same, sniffing, biting, chewing. But some of the fruit was too tough to break with teeth alone. One male squatted beside a stone, holding a nut in his hand. He banged it clumsily, the sound sharp and strange. At first nothing happened. He struck again, harder, until the shell cracked open with a dull snap. His nostrils flared as he sniffed the exposed kernel inside. Then he tasted it. The sweetness on his tongue was unexpected. His eyes widened, and he let out a low sound that drew the attention of the others. The female with the infant watched closely. She picked up a nut of her own, placed it against a rock, and imitated the male's action. Her first attempts failed. The nut slipped from her grip, rolled into the grass. She retrieved it, grunting softly with frustration. This time, she struck harder. The nut split and she brought the contents to her mouth. The flavor surprised her too. A small flicker of recognition passed through her mind. Cause and effect. She lifted a piece to the infant clinging at her breast, guiding it toward his lips. The child sucked and chewed, tasting the sweetness, smacking tiny lips in delight. Around them, the group grew more animated. One young male tried the same action but hit too forcefully, shattering the nut and scattering its pieces into the dirt. He whimpered, searching the ground, until another adult pushed some of their own kernel toward him. Sharing was not common, but neither was leaving one of their own to suffer. It was not kindness as humans know it, but it was a shadow of it, a survival instinct that tied them together. All the while, two males stood slightly apart, scanning the forest's edge. Their shoulders were tense, ears turning toward every distant rustle. Above them, a bird of prey circled, its wings stretched wide. From somewhere deeper in the brush, a leopard's low growl rose, vibrating through the clearing. Instantly the group froze, bodies pressed low to the ground. The males with the stones gripped them tightly, ready to defend. The mother clutched her infant closer, silent, her heartbeat racing. The predator did not appear, and after long moments, the group resumed its cautious foraging. Yet something had changed in that brief morning. A discovery had been made, passed from one to another. That stone could open what teeth could not. That knowledge could be shared. That cooperation meant survival. It was a small step, almost invisible in the great stretch of time. But in that act of breaking nuts with stones, the earliest sparks of what would one day become human culture were born. The edge of the forest gave way to an open stretch of grassland, the kind of place that felt both promising and terrifying. The air here was hotter, drier, the tall golden grass swaying under the sun like endless waves. For generations, the ancestors of these proto-humans had stayed within the safety of the trees. But the changing climate was slowly forcing them out. Food was scarcer in the dense canopy, and predators hunted with greater success in the shadows. Out here, the grassland offered new resources: roots, insects, small animals, but it also exposed them to dangers they were not yet fully prepared for. A small group moved cautiously into the open. Their movements were hesitant, jerky, as if every step was contested by instinct. Some remained low to the ground, knuckles brushing the dirt, while others straightened to their full height, trying to see over the tall grass. One young male rose higher than the rest, his spine stretching upright, his head tilting as he scanned the horizon. His breathing was fast, but in the distance, something caught his eye, movement slow and deliberate. His chest rumbled with a sharp call, urgent and cutting through the hum of insects. The others froze instantly, heads snapped up, eyes wide, bodies rigid. In the shimmering distance, half hidden by the grass, a predator prowled, larger than the lions we know today, its body thick with muscle, its head heavy with teeth meant for tearing flesh. It moved with quiet confidence, knowing its presence alone was enough to scatter prey. But this time the proto-humans did not scatter. They bunched together instead, drawing close, a wall of bodies instead of a line of prey. Their hands reached for sticks, for stones, for anything that could give them weight and noise. A low chorus of calls passed through the group. Guttural sounds meant not only to warn, but to strengthen their own courage. They swayed, stamped, waved their arms, brandishing their crude weapons. The predator slowed, its yellow eyes fixed on them. For a tense moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Predator and prey, testing one another. The young male who had first spotted the danger lifted a stone, high, and banged it against another. The sharp crack echoed. Others copied him, raising noise into the air, their cries raw but fierce. The predator's ears twitched, its tail lashed, but it did not advance. It circled instead, gauging, perhaps recognizing that these creatures, though small, were not defenseless. Finally, with a low growl that rippled through the grass, it turned and disappeared back into the distance. Relief washed over the group, though it showed itself only in loosening shoulders, in slower breathing, in the small gestures of touching one another briefly before resuming their march. They had survived not by fleeing, but by facing danger together. In their crude unity was a strength far greater than their teeth or claws. As they moved on, the grassland seemed less alien than before. The open space was still dangerous, but it had shown them something vital. Standing tall let them see. Warning calls could save lives, and together, they could drive away even the fiercest hunter, without knowing it. They were beginning to shape the very tools of survival that would one day define humanity: awareness, cooperation, and courage in the face of fear. The sky bled with colors as the sun sank, smearing deep reds, fiery oranges, and soft purples across the horizon. Shadows stretched long over the grassland, and the calls of the day's creatures slowly gave way to the voices of the night. The proto-humans, tired from their endless searching and watching, began to climb the twisted trunk of a tall tree that stood at the edge of the forest. Its thick branches reached outward like a protective cage, offering safety above the prowling predators that owned the ground once darkness fell. One by one, they hauled themselves upward. The mothers climbed carefully, their infants clinging tightly, small fingers gripping fur with surprising strength. The juveniles scrambled after them, testing their balance, occasionally slipping before catching themselves again. The adults positioned themselves in a loose circle, bodies pressed together, eyes scanning the dimming land below. Though no words passed between them, a quiet understanding flowed through the group. Safety was found in closeness. In staying together, the air grew cooler, carrying the distant sounds of predators stirring. A hyena-like cackle rose somewhere beyond the trees, followed by the deep, resonant roar of a great cat. The younger ones stirred uneasily, their small cries muffled against their mothers' chests. In response, the older members made soft, rhythmic grunts, a primitive comfort, not language as we know it, but something that soothed nonetheless. Slowly, the group settled into silence, their shapes blending into the shadows of the branches. High above, the stars began to reveal themselves, faint pinpricks scattered across the darkening sky. The proto-humans gazed upward now and then, their eyes catching the light of the unfamiliar shapes above. They did not understand the stars, not yet, but something in their stillness drew their gaze. The infants blinked at the strange brightness, while the adults, though weary, lingered in quiet thought, if such a thing could already be called thought. The infant that had tasted the sweetness of the nut earlier, that day clung to his mother's chest, wide eyes open, listening. Every rustle, every insect call, every distant howl etched itself into his small mind. Within him, and within them all, something subtle was awakening, the ability to remember, to notice, to learn. Night deepened. The group slept in short shifts, heads resting against branches, bodies leaning together. Below, predators prowled unseen, eyes glowing in the dark. Yet none dared climb the tree where the proto-humans rested. The height and unity of the group gave them protection. In the hush of the night, with danger all around, they survived another day. They did not know that their cautious steps, their shared vigilance, their instinct to comfort and protect were the very beginnings of a new kind of life. They were not yet human, not yet the masters of fire or makers of tools, but in their closeness and their growing awareness lay the first, fragile sparks of what humanity would one day become. For now, beneath the vast ancient sky, they were simply alive, half ape, half human, balanced delicately on the edge of an unimaginable future.